Hey folks, next I would like to graph my cosine parent. If you have not watched the sine parent video, go back and watch that one first because there'll be some preliminary information that I'm not going to discuss for this cosine parent. First thing I want to do is go ahead to my XY chart, and you should have your unit circle out in front of you. This time around though, as I go around the unit circle, I'm taking the cosine of each position, which we know is the x value of my coordinates on the unit circle. So we're looking at x values only on the unit circle, but I'm going to graph them as y values to get my cosine graph. So if you'll go then to your first position, the cosine at 0 is 1. The cosine of pi over 6 is root 3 over 2. The cosine of pi over 4 is root 2 over 2. The cosine of pi over 3 is 1/2. And the cosine at pi over 2 is 0. Next into the second quadrant, I'll just uncover all of these at the same time. My cosine values in the second quadrant, since these are x values, these are now going to be negative in the second quadrant. And then go ahead and go into the third quadrant. The third quadrant x values are also negative. And then lastly, my fourth quadrant cosine values, again, x values on the unit circle, are all positive. And so these are going to be now my coordinates that I'm going to graph up on my XY graph up here. So let's go ahead then and graph what we have. Again, I'm going up 10 blocks to get to the value of 1 and down 10 blocks to get to the value of -1. Again, in the last video, I gave you some of those decimal values. So here we go. Up at the position 0, my cosine is 1. At the position pi over 6, my cosine is root 3 over 2. Cosine of pi over 4 is root 2 over 2. Cosine of pi over 3 is 1/2. Cosine of pi over 2 is 0. So that takes care of the first quadrant. And so I'll just go ahead and map out the rest of these. Follow your XY chart. You can fill these in without even watching this part of the video. Once I have all of my values, I can see another nice, pretty curve. So I have, first of all, my first quadrant. Here's my second quadrant. Third quadrant, and the fourth quadrant. And that's your cosine parent.